What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. I know I said no more deck profiles until Sword and Shield hit PTCGO, but here we are. We're going to do updated Oranguru control today. But like I said, Sword and Shield is hitting PTCGO very soon, and when it does, you're going to want to get codes for that. Best place to do that is over at potownstore.com. You can use code Celio for 5% off, and they have Sword and Shield codes, Meowth VMAX, Alone Sin, /GX, every code you could ever need. And also check out flipsidegaming.com, where I write free articles, and you can use code Celio, all caps, for 10% off of your next order, $10 or more. So Oranguru control, I'm going to lay out the cards by section, and then go over them, then I'll go over the deck as a whole. So, disclaimer, this deck is just theorized out. I have not tested it yet, but I put it together. Wanted to do a profile to show everyone where I'm at with the archetype, because I've been getting questions about my thoughts on its viability, how to build it, if it will be a tier deck at all once Sword and Shield comes out. So that's kind of the purpose of this, and to give you guys a preview of where I'm at with the deck. So we got 4 Oranguru with resource management. Then I have a 3/3 Cinccino line. Cinccino's new. It has Make Do, which is just trade. Discard a card from your hand and draw 2 cards. And then a 2/2 Pidgeotto line, of course, which has been the main support for control and standard this season. It has Airmail. Once during your turn, you can look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one of them in your hand and the other at the bottom of your deck. I have Frostlass. This comes from Jesper Ericsson's top 16 Daytona list, I believe. And a couple other people might have been playing Frostlass as well. But Spiteful Sigh for a water energy does 20 damage for each. I'm sorry, I should read it from the other end. Put up to 7 damage counters on this Pokemon. This attack does 20 damage for each damage counter you place, so it can do up to 140 for placing damage counters on this. And this is like the best stage 1 attacker I can find at the moment for taking out threats. So threats are really just draw support on the bench. So their own Cinccino as Abstrika, namely the new Oranguru that allows you to replace the top card of your deck with a card from your hand or switch the cards. And this uses water energy, which Articuno also uses, which makes it a really nice fit into the deck. And then, of course, we have Articuno, which is used for Cold Crush GX. Discard all energy from both active Pokemon, so if your opponent has powered up a large threat that they don't need a hand for anymore, you need to get rid of all of its energy with Articuno. Then on to the supporters and stadiums. We'll also do stadiums here. I've got 4 Professor's Research. So I've replaced the Professor Elms with Professor's Research. Professor's Research is discard your hand, draw 7. And that's because going first, we can't use a supporter. So going first, we can't use Elms to set up. So I have replaced the Elms. I've replaced the Elms with both Research and 4 Quick Balls. So the Quick Balls are going to be helping us set up, hopefully, when we go first. And we also just have a higher number of basics for our draw power. So instead of a 4/4 line of Pidgeotto and then 1 Ditto, we have a 3/3 line and a 2/2 line and then the 1 Ditto. So I guess technically a 6/5 line of our draw support when you combine it all. So we have better odds of just drawing into a physical basic for our draw support lines, and then we also have the Quick Balls. So I'm going to try no Professor Elms, since you can't play a supporter card going first, and I didn't want to play Quick Balls and Professor Elm, and also Professor's Research helps us get through the deck faster. Then we've got 2 Mars and 2 Lieutenant Surge, 2 Belelba and Bryson Man, Faba and Tate and Liza. Stadiums, we have Champions Festival and Sky Pillar. So Lieutenant Surge, Mars, Belelba, they're pretty standard for the Oranguru control. Lieutenant Surge, when we're behind, allows us to play. After playing Surge, we can play 2 more supporters that turn. So like double Mars or Mars Belelba, whatever it is that we need to play. I'm playing 2 Belelba just because it's something that so you'll notice throughout this list that there's 2 ofs that you could probably play as 1 ofs, but they're just pertinent to strategies in certain matchups, and Gladion is not in the standard format. So, like, I'm playing the Snow Runt just because Frostlass is very important against anything that has the new Oranguru or has a draw support on the bench that we need to knock out. So if Ditto was prized, or if we didn't play Ditto and Snow Runt was prized, then we can't evolve into Frostlass. So playing the Ditto and the Snow Runt gives us better odds of not prizing important stuff there. Playing the 2 Articuno, since Articuno is so important because it's used in so many matchups. The 2 Mars, because Mars is a very, very important part of the deck. The 2 Belelba, because you'll use that frequently. So you get the idea. A lot of cards that could pass as 1 ofs are 2 ofs just because of awkward prizing. And this deck, really, in the before Sword and Shield, this deck was very, very strong, and a lot of times just lost to poor prizing. So I want to try to avoid that if possible. And then we have 4 Quick Ball, 4 Pokegear, 3 Crushing Hammer, 3 Custom Catcher, 2 Evolution Incense, 2 Palpad, 2 Reset Stamp, 2 Chip Chip, and 1 Normal Rod. And then I'll also throw the energy in here. We've got a Recycle and 3 Water. Let me just get all of that in the screen. Okay, so let's throw the energy in there. Okay, so that's the whole list if you wanted to snap a picture of it or whatever. So like I said, this is the whole list now, so I'm going to run through the items real quick, and then I'll talk about the deck as a whole, how I think it's positioned right now, why I have it built this way. And like I said at the beginning, this is all theory at the moment. I just wanted to show you guys my starting point for the archetype. So the 4 Quick Ball I already touched on. The 4 Pokegear are for consistency, getting to your Professor's Research early in the game to thin out your deck and draw through it. The Crushing Hammers, sometimes you need to remove energy from more than just one threat. So you can Articuno and also Crushing Hammer, or when you've got the lock going, you can resource manage Crushing Hammers underneath to just, if you gave them an energy on top last turn, get 2 Crushing Hammers, and on odds you'll flip 1 heads. 3 Custom Catchers, because we don't need 4. The only reason 4 would ever be good in this deck is in case you prize 2. Prizing 2 Custom Catchers is an issue. But prizing 1 is fine because you only need 1 gust effect and you can just resource manage them back and use them again. The Evolutionary Incense, or Evolution Incense, whatever it's called, just searches out an evolution Pokemon, and I think that's a really solid card in this deck since we do want to get our evolution set up quickly, but it's not worth playing a 4 of because then it would just be clunky and it can't search basics. 2 Palpad. Palpad's an important card for getting your Surge, Mars, Belelba back into your deck. Double Stamp, double Chip Chip, because you can't prize either of those. And then a Normal Rod. Brock's Grit is also a possibility here. I do have a stack of cards on the side to talk about possible inclusions. And then for energy, a Recycle and 3 Water. So if you're new to this archetype, the strategy is you wait until your opponent is down to 2 prize cards. You use Reset Stamp to shuffle their hand and they draw 2 cards. You play Surge so you can play 2 more supporters this turn. And then you play Mars to discard their hand down to 0. And then you Chip Ice Axe to look at the top 3 cards of their deck, put 1 of them back and shuffle. I'm sorry, not shuffle. Yeah. Look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, choose 1 of them. Your opponent shuffles the others back into their deck, then put the card that you chose back on top to essentially give them a dead draw for next turn with a 0 card hand, and you can just continually do that. Use Belelba eventually to start milling them once you have them locked sufficiently. So that's the strategy of the deck, and then you have things like the Frostlass to take out draw Pokemon that are on their bench. Like I mentioned, the new Oranguru from Sword and Shield is a huge threat to this deck because it's a common tech, it looks like, in preliminary lists, and it just allows you to dig one card deeper. So if you give them the dead draw off the top of their deck, they can just switch it with the next card, and if that's a live card like a Professor's Research, then they're back in the game and they can just win right off of that. So you want to take out those kinds of threats like Zebstrika, like Oranguru, like their own Cinccino. And the reason I have a split of Cinccino and Pidgeotto is because it's good to get to the bottom of your deck early on, but then later in the game you might run out of resources, so you don't always want to use Cinccino. Sometimes you'll just want to use Pidgeotto. And also because we essentially have a thicker line of our support Pokemon this way, and without being able to use Professor Elm's turn 1, we want to be able to have the actual more outs to having the actual cards on our bench turn 1 so that we can evolve into them. So the cards that I have that are possible inclusions, I have Jesse and James, which has been a popular card in Pidgeotto. Each player discards 2 cards from their hand. Your opponent discards first. I'm not sure, with the build I have here, I'm not sure if we would actually have enough resources at certain points in the game because we are using Cinccino to dig faster. We're using Professor's Research to dig faster, but Jesse and James is a potential inclusion. Mimikyu Impersonation, discard a supporter card from your hand. If there was, after testing, if there's any matchups where we need to mill them faster, or if just games are going longer for some reason than they were in the previous standard, maybe you would add Mimikyu to potentially use an extra Belelba and Bryson Man in that turn to just win the game there. Fion, because it can stop you from decking out. So some of these are just like theory, like I don't know how they would be useful, but they could be in the future. So this Pokemon, when you have it on your bench, you can put it to the bottom of your deck and make your opponent switch. So this could be a secondary gust effect, different from Custom Catcher. If like your opponent only has one Pokemon that you don't want active and they have it active, Fion could be used for that, and it also stops you from decking out. Like if you somehow had a 0-card deck but you had to use Frostlass or Articuno that turn instead of Resource Management. Girafarig, Get Lost, so if you need to get rid of certain cards in your opponent's discard pile that they've used so they can't reuse them again. Mew, if the Pikarom matchup ends up being shaky due to Tag Bull or any other decks with bench damage, but I believe Pidgeotto has been fine in the past versus Pikarom without a Mew. Persian, Make 'em Pay. If your opponent has 4 or more cards in their hand, they reveal their hand, discard cards you find there until your opponent has exactly 4 cards in their hand. So this is a really good control / stall / mill card. But like I said, after I actually get into testing games with this, I'll see if cards like these have any value in certain matchups. And then Brock's Grit, like I said, normal Rod I've replaced Brock's Grit with. Since it's not a supporter, we can just get it back with Oranguru anyway. But it might just turn out that Brock's Grit is better because you can PAL pad it and you can get more cards. And lastly, Pokemon Communication in place of Evolution Incense. If I don't like how Evolution Incense works out, maybe I'll like Pokemon Communication in its place, since this can get any card and this can only get Evolution cards. So those are my cards that I have on the side that I was considering putting into the deck. And like I said, this is a theorized list. I haven't started the testing yet, so it's a very early draft. And I'm also trying a lot of new things. So the Professor's Research in place of Elm, Quick Ball's a new card, Evolution Incense is a new card, Normal Rod's a new card, the whole Cinccino is new to Sword and Shield. So there's a lot of new stuff going on here that I'm trying out. The big threat to this archetype is the new Oranguru that I mentioned, and also Zacian V can be a threat to it because it forces you to essentially have to stamp Surge Mars, Chip every turn. If they're just drawing a new hand of 3, but that could also be a matchup where you would want to aggressively Belelba and Bryson Man. So like I mentioned with the Mimikyu, potentially go Surge, Belelba, PAL pad the Belelba back, draw into it with Cinccino, then use Mimikyu to play a third Belelba and mill them 9 cards. So I think that could potentially be a way to just deal with that. If they're drawing aggressively the whole game and then they draw 3 more with Zacian, maybe they're down to an under 10 card deck where something like that could work. So that's kind of all the information, all of the theory I have on this deck right now, the reasoning for a lot of the cards. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I said in the beginning, be sure to check out PotownStore.com for all of your PTCGO needs, and also FlipsideGaming.com. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this in the near future. I'll be playing a lot of Sword and Shield on PTCGO, both in YouTube videos and on my live streams on Twitch. And I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.